Welcome to this module on case opening. In this module, we will cover first, what does a successful case opening entail? I will also demonstrate a strong case opening example using a real consulting case to make the learning more tangible. Third, we will talk about what are some of the common case opening mistakes that candidates make during the opening part that tends to derail their entire case interview performance. Um, During a case opening, the interviewer lays out the case prompt to you or provides the problem statement to you. But during that time, the key thing that you need to focus on is listening actively and noting down key information. Next, in order to grasp the problem better, it's important to ask relevant clarifying questions, primarily related to the client objective and also related to the client's unique context and situation. Now, there are three key elements for strong case opening. First is recap. After the interviewer has provided you with the prompt, take a moment to gather your thoughts and paraphrase the case prompt back to the interviewer in your own words. If you have misunderstood something, this is your opportunity to clear it up. Second is to get a clear understanding of the client objective. How does success look like for the client in terms of focus metric, definition of the focus metric, target value, and also the timeline of achievement of this target value? If the focus metric seems vague, force the interviewer to define it for you. For instance, if the goal is to improve ROI, inquire what does ROI specifically mean for the client. Is it profit relative to investment cost, or do they have some other definition? Once you've understood the client objective, you need to get a grasp of the client's unique context and situation. There are multiple clarifying questions you could ask here, and it depends on the problem statement. However, there are few common context-specific clarifying questions that you could ask. First is questions related to business model. These questions help you understand how does the client make money, right? For example, does he sell product to customers or to other businesses? Does he sell products, let's say, online or through retailers? Second is clarifying any unclear business terms. For example, let's say you get a sustainability case and that pertains to carbon credits, and you don't know what carbon credits mean. Just ask. You could say something like, could you please help me understand how do carbon credits work? Third is questions related to the scope of the problem statement, right? For instance, let's say if the objective is revenue growth, by simply asking if the client is open to diversifying, right? Or is he only focused on strengthening of the core business? And if the interviewer tells you that the client is not open to diversifying, you would have scoped down your structure, right? You would have set certain boundary conditions, right? Which will help you formulate a more focused structure. Next, we will be using a case throughout this course to explain each of the four parts. And in this section, I will use this case to explain the case opening. This will make the learning more tangible, right? This is the example case prompt that we will be using. It's StreamPro growth strategy case. StreamPro is a big player in the US streaming market, known for its wide range of content. They brought in $5 billion last year. But with competition heating up and the market becoming saturated, the growth has started to slow. A new CEO has been brought in to boost profits. While one team tackles cost optimization, your team has been tasked with driving revenue growth over the next 3 years. This is an example of a case prompt that you will typically get from the interviewer. As we discussed, the first thing that you do after you hear this case prompt from the interviewer is you take a moment to gather your thoughts and then paraphrase the case prompt or recap the case prompt back to the interviewer, right? Let me show you how I would recap the StreamPro case prompt back to the interviewer. So I would say something like, thank you for the prompt. Let me recap to ensure I've got all the required information. StreamPro, a US-based $5 billion video streaming company, faces slowing growth due to competition and market saturation. The new CEO wants us to boost annual revenue growth while a separate team is working on cost reduction strategies. The key question that the client wants a help with is to identify opportunities to accelerate revenue growth in the next 5 years, next 3 years, sorry. Is my understanding correct? Right. So notice that while recapping the case prompt, I emphasized only the key information. And I also included the key question that the client wants us to address. If you miss the recap, right, and if you don't recap effectively, what you risk is missing vital information necessary to solve the case. Next, let's look at what to clarify, right? Specifically, the clarifying questions that you will be asking to clarify the client objective first, and then clarifying the client's unique context and situation. Now, if we look at the StreamPro case, we already know the focus metric is revenue. We also know that the timeline is 3 years, but we don't know the target. We do not know what level of revenue growth would be deemed success for the client. So here we ask the interviewer to give us a target value. Let's assume the interviewer is kind enough and he gives us a target value of, let's say, $6 billion, which means we need to find growth opportunities that increase revenues by at least $1 billion. Once you have this clear case objective, right, which includes a numerical target value, right, not only the conceptual objective in terms of revenue growth, but also numerical target value in terms of $1 billion revenue increase, you can now use it as your North Star while driving the analysis with the interviewer, right? So after each specific analysis, right, let's say a market sizing or let's say exhibit interpretation, you can synthesize the intermediate answer, right, and tie it back to the overall case objective, right? For example, you could ask something like, what does this answer to this specific analysis, let's say market sizing that I've conducted, say about achieving $1 billion revenue increase, right? So that's how you link it back and you use the objective, right, to guide your discussion with the interviewer and drive towards the answer to the key question, right? Once we have a good understanding of the client objective, we move towards understanding the client's specific context and situation, right? Now, here in the StreamPro case, because our objective is to grow revenue, it's important for us to clarify the business model, right? Or understand how does the client generate revenue. Let's say assume the client or the interviewer tells us that StreamPro generates revenue by subscriptions, user subscriptions. Then we could ask clarifying questions related to the scope or the boundary conditions of the problem statement, right? Here, for example, by clarifying that the client is interested in only strengthening of the core business or is he open to diversification, we can eliminate certain branches of a logic tree, right? For example, here, because the interviewer is telling us that the client is only interested in opportunities related to core business, we can eliminate ideas related to diversification that we might have included in our structure and rather focus our logic tree only on core business growth ideas, right? Now let's look at some common case opening mistakes that candidates make and that tends to derail their entire case interview performance. First mistake a lot of candidates do is they don't listen to the interviewer and they tend to miss important details. So during the initial case prompt or when the case prompt is being given to you, focus on grasping the information that the interviewer is providing you. And don't hesitate to ask the interviewer to repeat if something is not clear. Another mistake I see a lot of candidates making is they don't clarify the definition of the client objective, right, or the focus metric. A lot of them worry that this will make them look stupid, right? But you should remember that you're solving for the case objective and not the case prompt. If you assume an incorrect definition of the objective, your structural logic could be totally wrong, right? For example, let's say if the interviewer tells you that the objective of the client is to increase productivity, don't assume a productivity definition. Rather, ask how does the client define productivity? Next up, What a lot of candidates do is they jump into data requests before outlining their problem solving approach. Also, a lot of candidates, what they do is that they ask a lot of clarifying questions in the hope that they will stumble upon some useful information that they can use to solve the case, right? But you should remember what I discussed when I was introducing the case interview. What is being tested or what is being assessed through a case interview is your ability to move from a problem, a complex problem, to a well-reasoned solution using a methodical, logical sequence of steps, right? They are not looking for people who can guess solutions, right? Or people who can um, um, use certain pre-learned or memorized solutions and apply to different problem categories, right? So focus on asking targeted questions that help you structure the problem. If a clarification doesn't change your problem solving structure, it's better to ask for that information after you've outlined your approach. Now let's finally talk about note taking, right? A lot of candidates scribble furiously without any clear organization, only to get lost in their own notes later on. So find a note taking system that's easy to reference and easy to draw insights from later on. Finally, let's recap all the key takeaways that we have got from this particular lesson. First is listen actively and recap the case prompt to confirm your understanding. Next is clarify the client objective. Get a very good grasp of what is the focus metric, what is the definition of the focus metric, what is the target value that the client wants us to achieve, what is the timeline or by when does he want us to achieve this, right? And then ask questions that help you understand the client's unique context and situation. For example, you could ask questions related to the business model of the client. You could ask questions that help you scope down your structure, right? You can ask questions that help you clarify any unclear business terms. And finally, we talked about 4 common mistakes that candidates make that tends to derail the case interview performance. First is not listening actively and missing key information. Second is not asking the right clarifying questions, primarily not clarifying what is the objective of the client, what is the definition of the client objective. Third is jumping into data gathering before having structured the problem or before having formulated a problem solving approach. And finally, disorganized note taking, due to which a lot of candidates tend to lose track of important information and insights. Thank you for listening. In the next video, we will talk about the next component of case interview, which is case structuring.